This month on Bad Law, Worst Facts, I had Sari de Lamont on. She's the author of Hostage to Hero. She also has sariswears.com. She has the Hostage to Hero, i.e. H2H podcast, as well as the group that you can join and work on your voir dire techniques. We discussed jury bias. We discussed the funnel technique. We also really got into us being, well, on the right, something we forget quite often. Check out the podcast and let me know what you think. And if you like this podcast, please like and subscribe. And hey, leave a comment so other people can see it as well too. Welcome to Bad Law, Worst Facts. I'm your host, Michael Tekla. We got Sari back on. Sari, how are you doing today?
I'm good. I'm very good. I was making fun of you for your podcast background not being as cool as mine. So,
Yeah, I'm gonna now have to invest to a lot more. And the thing is like I'm doing this at home, and the problem is that I have all this Star Wars stuff. So legitimately, there's like it's kind of blurred out. There's some holes here and there that I take off most of it, but maybe I should
Why?
just leave it up.
Leave up that nerdy shit. I love it. I love it. Yeah.
I just realized I didn't take away. I have like an A in Mandalorian in the back over there because that's my alma mater that I like custom got. And so I probably should take that down too.
Nice. Star Wars and Mandalorian and all that stuff is the only kind of sci-fi I can get into. I'm all about. Isn't that funny? I'm wearing my like a girl shirt today. How random is that? Yeah.
So you used to be H2H, right? That used to be kind of
Hostage to Hero.
From Hostage to Hero. Okay.
Hero.
See, I immediately said it because that's what everybody knows it as. So
that's why we changed it from Hostage to Hero, because nobody says that. Our fans came up with H2H, the number 2. And so when we were rebranding the podcast in terms of look, and we have a new, intro song, and we thought, do you want to keep from Hostage to Hero? And we thought, it doesn't really fit anymore. So we went to Sari Swears, like the website.
I like that. I like that a lot.
Thank you.
Again, I think it's very on brand. I discussed it in the intro, but again, Hostage to Hero has really, really helped me, especially early on in my career. When I read that book, I was like, that's it. Like, I need to work on these things, and it makes you think about things that you don't think about. Like, I like that you had like those pictures about how you have to stand and do all that. And I like work on it. I sometimes have to pinch myself a lot because I'm trying to hold a certain posture. Anyways, but that's not what we're.
That means you're not breathing. So you got to breathe, buddy. None of this is going to work unless you're breathing.
I try to do everything. But what I want to talk to you about today is a couple of things. First, when I saw you in Las Vegas at the Trial Lawyers University, I was extremely impressed with your presentation. There were other presentations that were good, but I thought not only were you just engaging, but what you discussed was something I think a lot of us overlook. And I actually went and watched it because they have Trial Lawyer University on demand, and looked at it for a case that I was going to try and ended up going to trial for. And one of the things that you really discussed is kind of the funnel method. But before we get to the funnel method, one of the things that I thought was very important was talking about bias. And so, I saw one of my friends who posted this clip up of him. He was like doing a fake voir dire and he was like discussing it, but it was kind of like just him showing it to Instagram followers. And he's like, jury is a deselection process. I'm trying to find people who are going to come into this with no bias, who are going to say, I just have a clean slate. And I was like, I was like, that's garbage. I mean, like maybe you say that. I don't even think you say that, to be honest with you. But I thought that was just pure unadulterated garbage. So I wanted personal injury attorneys, to hear kind of what your kind of spiel is about how juries come in with bias.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think all people have bias, jurors included. And not only can we find neutral people, we can't do that, right? Because everybody's going to have an opinion on everything, especially in today's day and age. Everybody absolutely has an opinion about everything. But I would also say that we don't want that. We don't want clean, sanitized jurors that have no thoughts about anything. I think this is why plaintiff law plaintiff attorneys have such a hard job, is because you have to do something that's very difficult, which is you have to motivate jurors to act. Now, the easiest thing to do for any human is to leave things as they are. right? So what you're trying to do is to motivate people to do something, to enact change, to create something in the lives of their communities and of course for our plaintiff. And so you're not going to get there with people who are sitting on the sidelines going, I don't know, one way or the other. Now, of course, they shouldn't have, thoughts about facts that they haven't heard yet, right? Obviously, that's the fairness that the judge wants and that we, of course, want. But what I also tell my plaintiff attorney clients is that most jurors are biased, yes, but they're biased for you. They just don't know it yet. You have a weird look on your face.
It's
Yeah.
hard to say that they're
What do
biased
you
for
think about
you.
that?
It's tough for me to swallow. It's a tough pill. It is because
Yeah.
when you say they're biased for you, I'm thinking Texas jurors, they don't really, I mean, Harris County is okay, but when I go to middle, like
Well,
Montgomery County or something like
I
that's
think
ultra conservative, it's ultra conservative. I think, no, I have to be very careful. I'm thinking for cause strikes. I have to think about these things. So to hear that and say,
don't get
hey,
me
no, no, no.
started on cause strikes, right? Those are like, it's the new dick measuring contest, verdict measuring contest. Cause strikes are right behind that, right? Oh, in my last trial, I got 15 people off. Got people off. See, it even fits the metaphor. So if that's your only goal in voir dire, you're missing the fucking point. And by the way, Texas is a great place to try cases. I mean, I work with clients all over the United States. Colorado only gets 20 minutes of voir dire. New Jersey doesn't even have voir dire, caps and all the things. But so in general, Texas is a great place to try cases. In fact, I was just there last week in San Antonio for SATLA. But the reason I say that, and I think the reason why, well, let's start with the reason why it's a hard pill to swallow, is most attorneys believe that the juror is your enemy. I mean, that's why I wrote the whole book,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
Is that,
I
I'll
understand that.
ask my audiences, who's the enemy at trial? And they'll be like, the jurors, right? We're scared of them. They're the ones that are going to fuck us over, all of the things. And there's one thing that I think most plaintiff attorneys forget to their detriment, and that is that you stand on the side of the right. The defense doesn't have that. In most of our cases, the defense is trying to get away with something. In most of our cases, the defense is trying to cover up something. They're lying, they're betrayed their client if it's insurance, all of the things. And I'm not saying that to make y'all feel good. I'm saying it because I think you're missing it. And it's such a huge thing. When you think about it, lots of people go, oh, it's inclusive voir dire. No. We don't do we accept everyone. What we
Right.
call it is principle centered voir dire, meaning every plaintiff case is based on principles. And what are principles? Principles are universal truths, right? 99% of people believe them. For example, if you go outside when it's raining, as it does here in Oregon quite a bit, you may get wet. Nobody's going to argue with that. That was one of our principles. The defense isn't going to argue with that. It's a truth, right? It's fundamentally true. And so when you think about what most plaintiff cases are about, they are about families. They are about things lost that we all love as humans. They are about lying. They are about betrayal. They are about covering up. They're about trying to get away with something. 99% of people in the world do believe that lying's wrong. They believe that if you hurt somebody, you should make up for it. Conservatives included, right? Those are our rule followers. And so I think what we end up doing is we hear all the things the defense are going to say, and then our whole case becomes a way to defend the defenses.
Right.
I just had somebody here at one of our Coming on the Courtroom events. He said, I just don't get it. I had this one issue that I really knew was going to be a problem for the jury. And so I voir dired on, that's pretty much my whole voir dire was on it. And then a huge part of my opening was on it. And I even spent a ton of time in closing on it. And then he stopped himself and he went, and I said, yeah, what you talk about, you make important. That was the defense's point. And what did you do? You just threw a party for it and put it in big lights. And we're like, pay attention to this, jurors. And this is what we do, right? Out of fear. We're like, oh my God, this is a scary issue. So let me spend all this time on it instead of finding out what the principles are in your case, focusing your voir dire and everything else on those principles and letting the defense hang themselves. So that's why I say the jurors are biased for you, because 99% of people believe in principles. That's why they are principles. And all plaintiff cases are principle based. You just haven't found them yet. because you're wasting your time on the defense's case.
So that kind of brings me to something I did in my last trial. I wanted to see what you thought about it in terms of kind of the funnel method, and then we can talk about principles with the funnel method as used words.
Right. It's the point of it. Yeah.
So this wasn't per se a principle, but I used the funnel method in this way. So in Texas, we tend to send clients to providers so that the providers can see them. If the person's not injured, the person's not injured. If the person is, the provider can see them under what's called a letter of protection. Didn't hide that, never hid that in litigation. I don't hide that in any of my cases, to be honest with you. I think the jury should know. There was a lot of issues, but that was one of them. And I wanted to make this pretty quick because there were so many other issues. And so I started thinking, that's when I saw your on-demand speech, and it reminded me of when I was there, what you spoke about. And I was like, you know what? The quickest way to do this and dispel this issue that's going to be a problem at trial is just to get jurors who have dealt with this issue before, have that kind of dissipate. And so I went up, and one of the questions I asked is, who here has been involved in a car accident? And half the room, if not more, raised their hand. Who here hired an attorney as a result of a car collision? I mean, half of that raised their hand. And who here was injured and hired an attorney? They raised their hand. So then I picked one of them. I said, when did it happen? Said 20 years ago. I said, okay, 20 years ago, you hired an attorney. Did that attorney send you to medical treatment? He did. Did you go and seek those medical doctors? Did you go and see them? I did. And did they help you? They helped me a lot. What was your treatment? I went to chiropractic therapy. I went to MRIs, and I got some injections. Are you still having pain today? I am. And does it bother you? It does. Does it affect your daily life? It affects my daily life. If the defense at any point in time were to say that injury was a sprain strain, would you find that ridiculous in your case? Yeah, I would find that ridiculous. And did you think you were faking your injuries because a lawyer requested that you go to this place? No, not at all. Thank you, juror number whatever. I didn't even bring it up afterwards. And that's kind of what I did. So you tell me how I did and how I could make it better / what you think I kind of messed up on trying to do that funnel.
Okay. So that's not a funnel, is the first
Sure.
thing I will say.
Sure.
All right. So when we talk about a funnel method always has a principle, a plane of principle that you're driving to. That's why we use the thing. It's like, here's where we're going. And not only here's where we're going, it's here's what we want the juror to tell us. Right. So we
Yeah.
start in our voir dire process by asking, you to make a list of all of your fears, right? What are all of your fears in this case? And that's defense points. That's things that keep you up at night, things you're worried that jurors think about. So the fear here obviously was what? Tell me what the fear was in this particular
That they think
case.
because I think I sent the client somewhere that he's faking his injuries.
Not even him. It's that you greedy lawyer, right, is going or sending him over here to write up the bill, right? Run up the bill because I'm going to send him over here and he's going to say he has all these things. So yeah, there's a faking component too, but it's like, oh, he didn't go to the doctor by himself. The lawyer sent him. That means this, right? So we start there. So then I say, okay, if that's one of our fears in the case, what would have to fly out of a juror's mouth for you to be like, this is no longer a fear? Like this would fix this issue. So what would a juror think about you sending someone to a doctor? What's your most perfect thing they could say? In
I
other
don't
words,
know.
what do
Maybe
you want them to believe about that?
that should happen. That people don't know where to go, and I do it every day, and so it's very understandable. Or in fact, I would probably ask my attorney something like that.
Yeah. So when I'm thinking something like when a lawsuit is brought, right? We want to bring as much information to the jury as possible so that they can determine what's going on. And part of that is what are the injuries, if there are any injuries? I mean, I'm assuming there's injuries. That's why we're here, right?
Right.
So that's one thing we'd want them to think, right? This is a fact-finding mission. There's nothing wrong with that as long as the doctor is, reputable.
Right.
So first we think of what do we want the jury to believe? What would save us is kind of how we think about it. Is there anything else that would save you in that scenario? I mean, did this person go and see a doctor, never see a doctor? Like what happened here to why you sent them?
I've never seen a doctor for neck or back pain. No, but I
They
mean,
had never
contacted.
seen a doctor. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, never. Perfectly healthy. And just didn't know who to see when they contacted. Said they're having issues. And I was like, well, there's lists of places you can go take a look.
So they were having pain and they didn't know why. I mean, they thought it was from this thing, but they didn't know, like a doctor hadn't said the causation piece, right? Because this happened, it's, smash this and that's causing this. They just knew This thing happened and now I have pain. Yes?
Right.
Okay. So let's make it even simpler. So if you are here working with me, which you kind of are, so now I see what you're trying to do here is get this free advice. But here it is, right? So if you're working with me, I would say let's make it even simpler. So our plaintiff principle is, when we have pain, we go to the doctor to see what's wrong, right? If someone has pain, then they often go to a doctor to see what's wrong. Okay. I need to know more about your case, but let's just play with that one. So your first question was the right question. Who here I don't know if I would even do car crash. Who here's ever had pain for any reason, right? Everybody
Right.
raises their hand. And then it's something like, and what did you do to figure out where that pain was coming from? And some people might say, well, I tripped, so I knew what it was from. But you didn't go to a doctor? No. Why not? Well, I pretty much knew what it was, right? Why it happened. How about some of the rest of you? Did any of you go to a doctor? Why'd you go? Well, I kind of knew why I had the pain, but I wanted to see if there's something I could, do to make it better. So you're kind of getting in the air that some people go to the doctor and some people don't, right? Because your guys didn't
Yeah.
go to the doctor. Now, then you
So
might
far, way
say
better
if
than what I
someone's
did.
right? And then you might say something like, well, if somebody's bringing a lawsuit and they haven't gone to the doctor, but the jury needs to know whether or not this person is injured, what would you expect? I expect them to go to the doctor, right? Is the answer you'd get, right? What's important about that? Well, because the doctor can tell the jury if there's something actually wrong with them or if this crash actually caused it, right? So now we're there, right? So we're at our principle. They've said it, maybe not in exact words we've written it, but they basically said people go to the doctor to find out what's wrong with them. And that's especially true if you're in a case, a jury case. The juror needs that information. And now we bring up the defense point. We're going to do it in what we call the devil's advocate voice. Because every time in H2H that we talk about a defense point, we make it sound ridiculous every time. I'm never going to sound normal when doing a defense point, right? So I might say something like, yeah, but what if the lawyer sent them? Then they're just out for the money. Then they're faking, right? We just say it out loud, and you would be amazed at what happens. The jurors go, no, for a couple reasons. One, we never do a devil's advocate until they've all said, no, you go to the doctor to get information, basically, right? That's why you go to a
Right.
doctor. And CLDing, I don't do a lot with influence because I don't think you need influence when you're on the plaintiff side because you stand on the side of the right. I'm going to keep reminding you of that. Truth doesn't need shininess. It just needs to be shown. Truth just needs to be shown. But CLD, grandfather influence does say that when people make a public commitment, right, they say something in front of a bunch of other people, they're likely to stick to that, right? It's a credibility issue. It's an integrity issue. So you've got the whole panel going, yeah, you go to the doctor to get information about why you're feeling bad. They've all said that, right? Agreeing with it, nodding with it. And then you go, yeah, but if a lawyer sends that person, then they're faking it, right? And because they just said no, they'll be like, no, that's not necessarily true. Say more. But just because the lawyer sent them doesn't mean that they're faking. Really. I'm telling you, we get the best stuff out of the devil's advocate question, but you have to make it sound kind of, yeah, but it always starts with a yeah, but they didn't go to the doctor until the lawyer told them, then they're faking, right? I mean, they have to be faking. And it's kind of scary. People are like, oh my God, I can't say that. Well, yeah, I don't suggest you say it like that. Like, well, if somebody goes to the doctor only when their lawyer tells them to go, then they're faking, right? Now I sound reasonable. I'm using my
Yeah.
normal Sari voice. But if I'm like, yeah, but if they do this, I'm telling you, they're like, no, that's not okay. And we do that with lots of things, think of, 18-wheeler cases, right? Who here's ever shared the road with an 18-wheeler? Everybody's hand goes up. What was that like? My God, it's frightening. What's so scary about it? They're so much bigger and you're smaller. And so what would you expect in terms of training? Let's say training was an issue in your case. I would expect them to train. I would expect them to do that. Okay, what could happen if they don't do that? People could get killed. Yeah, but trucking companies, those drivers have a CDL. That's a special license. They don't need to do anything else, right? Let's say that's a defense point. See, we never funnel a defense point. It's always a plaintiff principle. So the plaintiff principle in that one is trucking companies need to train their drivers. And why? Because these trucks can cause so much damage. Now, the defense point is, hey, they had a CDL. That's enough. I'm making that up. I'm just saying, let's say. So we always do that after the jury has said, yes, we would expect them to train. Then and only then do we go, yeah, but they have a CDL. That's enough, right? And right in that moment, the jury solves all your problem. They're like, no, that's not. Why? Why isn't that enough? Well, because XYZ and all this great stuff comes out. So that's where you went wrong, my friend, is that you had like a ton of questions that were kind of defense based. You even said
Yeah.
the defense at some point. I just want to get all the plaintiff principles in the air. Yeah, we believe that doctor or hospitals should monitor. Yeah, we believe that trucking companies should train. Yeah, we believe that people who own a business should keep the sidewalks clear of tripping hazards. Yes, yes, yes. People say, that's so simple though, Sorry. Really? You want them to say this simple thing? Yeah, because when they say the
Yeah.
simple thing, it's like, this is so simple. They could have just monitored. They could have just trained. They could, and look, none of this would have happened. And so then the jury figures out your liability problems too. They're telling you. I always say that there's two questions every plaintiff case has to answer, or you're going to get a defense verdict. And the first one was, how could this have been avoided? So boom, there it is. So you're like, what would you expect? And they're like, we would expect training. Jury just solved that for me. All right, that's how this could be avoided. And the second question is, how can money help? Right? You have some really good damages funnels too, which by the way, we have a damages 2-day coming on the courtroom in our brand new mock courtroom here in Portland coming up in October. So if any of your
Tell me more
listeners
about
or
that.
you want to come, you should. It's sorryswears.com/damages. And so for 2 days, we're going to play with how to talk about damages in voir dire is day one. I mean, you'll be up on your feet doing my price versus value funnel method. And then on day two, we're going to talk about how to talk about damages in opening. It's going to be great. Only 12 attorneys coming, small group, work with me, hands on. You should
That's
come.
huge. That's huge because that's
Yeah.
even. I think that's something personally I have a little bit of a tough time with in voir dire, and not so much like the questions, although questions always could be better, but just kind of engaging jurors with that. I always feel like there's so much more I can do every single time, right?
Yeah. And we don't spend enough time on damages.
No,
I
I
find.
don't.
And a
I don't
lot of
think we do.
attorneys are like, my damages game is not great. And so that's why we came up with this. We've had the courtroom was done in April, and I just was like, hey, let's try a 2-day seminar. Sold out in 6 hours. So we've done 3 since then. All of them sold out. And then everyone kept saying, please do damages. So we're really going to focus on damages. And we've got a whole way of how we talk to jurors about damages in voir dire. It's probably the most scripted thing we have. We don't script hardly anything, but it's a step-by-step process. So that's our price versus value piece. And we do a lot with that. But yeah, that's the second question. So it's like, can this have been avoided? And how can money help? You got those two things, you're pretty golden. It sounds simple, but yeah, as we know, that's kind of difficult
It's
uh,
really hard.
to
You
answer
can.
those types of questions.
I very rarely meet people who are good at both. I know people who are just great liability guys. They can get a verdict no matter what. I'll be honest with you. I think I kind of fall in that realm. I think even on the toughest case, I'll probably get a verdict in favor of our client if the facts are relatively there. But I've always personally struggled with damages. And
Well,
that's,
yeah, I think that's true too. A lot of attorneys say I can win on liability all day, but my verdicts aren't as high as I think they should be.
yeah, that's
Right? And
exactly
so
right.
I think there's this because damages isn't as sexy, right? If we got a piss off point, right? If we've got bad actors and we're like, yeah, liability all day long. And I love liability, do not get me wrong. But in order to do damages well, you really need to be kind of coming out of your lawyer skin, both in that part in voir dire and in opening and closing, and really bringing more of your humanness forward. That's where we get damages, is when we can really kind of say, folks, this is what this is really about. And I think a lot of us don't want to go there. So that's why we're spending 2 days on it. Well, that's the other thing too, is that y'all wait until you have a case to actually, people call me. I think they don't do it as much anymore because I keep yelling at them not to. But hey, I got a trial in 2 weeks. Can you help me? And I'm like, no, motherfucker, what are you doing calling me 2 weeks before? What I will hear from most of my clients now are they're like, oh my God, I'm going to start way early. And we're talking like a year early because you can't just shove all that in 2 weeks prior. You got to be putting in the time and working on your arguments. In general, I found that so many, like I always say, unless we're talking about a car crash, most plaintiff cases are systemic failure. And we can use a lot of the same principles just applied to the case. So the more that you're practicing and working with these things, the easier that prep becomes instead of trying to shove it all in, 2 weeks or 2 days before trial. That's not good.
I think it's also tough because to kind of go back to your book is that you also talk about, how you're supposed to stand, how you're supposed to do these things. If you're not practicing that actively, it's a problem.
That's right. I have a podcast coming out in a couple, well, maybe a month from now, on practicing, because I've continually heard that now that we're doing these in persons with our new mock courtroom is, what are you taking from this? What are you learning? And almost everybody's like the importance of practice. And we just don't do it, right? Which is so funny because when you think about it, like we think, well, because I'm not in trial that often. Well, most musicians practice hundreds of thousands of hours more than they're ever performing. Most athletes practice way more than they'll ever play in a game. And this is really where the rubber meets the road because as I talk about in the book, your nonverbal communication, how you're communicating nonverbally will have a bigger impact than your words. In fact, we know that if there's a mismatch between what you're saying and what you're actually doing, the listener will always go with what you're doing over the words every single time. So yes, people come out here and I'm like, now don't freak out. You've learned all these cool nonverbal skills. And they're like, oh my, now I have 37 more ways to fuck up my case. I'm like, no, 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 no. I want you to think about this as 37 new tools that you can use. But these tools take practice. There's no easy way here. I think people want to go to, let's even say a 2-day seminar of mine. And I can watch them. They're really hard on themselves. They're like, this is so awkward. I don't know if I'm doing it right. And I'm like, oh, did you expect to get this in 2 days? Fuck you. It took me 5 years, 20 years now. But when I first started to really get good at what I was doing and you expect to learn this in 2 days, come on now. You got to be willing to go on that
Yes.
journey of self, growth. It doesn't happen in 2 days. That practice has to be ongoing, even when you leave here.
Yeah, I have a friend of mine who's trying his first case, and he's like, "How do I just go up there and just do it how you do, like the opening, and just kind of like going through these movements and doing that stuff?" I was like, "Well, have you written your opening?" He's like, "I'm working on it." I'm like, "Man, it is a few days before trial. You can't just be working on it.
You
It's got
can't
to
just
be
shove it in.
prepped.
Yeah,
It's not how it works."
way earlier.
The other thing is, people talk about, Mike, you have like this podcast, it's going really well, blah, blah, blah. What made you start? I was like, 2 reasons. One, I noticed I say a lot. And so I wanted to work on that. And, I catch myself sometimes doing it still, but it's getting better. Two, I wanted to speak to people like you and others that are doing this at a very high level, seeing what's going on and getting the plaintiff bar better. I want to get in front of them and I want to hear and steal some of this stuff, right?
Right. Free advice. I told you I have your number. Absolutely. There it is. I'm happy to
So
help. I mean, I'm in a love affair with plaintiff attorneys. I say that all the time. I just love y'all. And I think it's because, again, because you stand on the side of the right. I mean, especially now where we are in the world, I just think that trial lawyers are literally one of the few things standing between us and utter chaos. As Rick Friedman says, you guys stand for human values over corporate values. And it's such important work. And I feel so honored to be on that journey with you because your job is hard. It's a huge mind fuck, which is why we talk about mindsets stuff a lot over here. In any of our 2 days, we talk about, hey, you can't do any of these things with your hands and your voice and all of that when you really believe that the jury is your enemy and that they are looking to fuck you. You've got to get in a different headspace. And that with the skills is what's going to help you and the practice really do a good job in trial. You can't be afraid and then just put on, this nonverbal skills stuff. It doesn't work that way. You've got to get in a headspace that says, I stand on the side of the right.
yeah, one of the things that you're speaking of, I kind of had a little bit of an issue with is that one of the jury trial I just had in voir dire, there was a defense attorney actually on the case, in the panel.
Wow.
And I noticed that not only is he a defense attorney, but he works for insurance companies actively. So I asked him, do you think you'd be fair and impartial as a defense attorney? He's like, oh, absolutely. And he gave me a wink. And I was like, oh, man. Okay. And so he was nice about it. He actually came up to the judge after. He's like, look, I've got depositions. I got the stuff. If none of them have struck me, which they should, I'd like to leave. And
well,
and
that's my least favorite question. Do you think you could be fair? Everyone's going to be like yes or no if they want to leave, right?
Sure.
It's a throwaway question, but it brings to mind the name of your podcast, Bad Law, Worse Facts. But we're so afraid of the bad answer, right? I've just seen people when they're out here working in our mock courtroom. We bring in juries and we play with them too, and they get a bad answer, and it's just like freeze. What do I do with that? And I'm like, that's such good news for you. There's so many things we can do with a quote unquote bad answer. I don't think there is such thing as bad answer. I mean, one, it shows us who our people are not, right? But two, we can use that person to form the group. We can make them an outlier and all the new group dynamic stuff that I love. There's nothing to be afraid of. And so, in our voir dire today, those have been very popular. We have a whole session where we're like, okay, worst answer ever that you could get. Let's try. And we just try practicing how to handle bad, quote unquote, bad answers. And they really do leave going, you're right. There is no bad answer. My uncle, got his leg blown off in Vietnam. Nobody gave him any money, right? That's a scary answer for most plaintiff attorneys.
That escalated very quickly. Yeah.
Right. I was like, that's a great answer. Here's how you handle it. Isn't it terrible how we treat our veterans in this country? How's your uncle? Is he okay? And it just is amazing how it just flips the juror. Like they're trying to goad you. And you're just like, nothing's going to throw me off. Thank you for sharing about that. Can you tell me, how does your uncle struggle not having a leg? Boom. Now I'm in my damages argument. I can get damages out of this guy. Yeah, I'm going to strike him. He's not going to be from my team, but I can use anything. And I think we forget that, right? He has something valuable to share. He has an uncle without a leg. My thing is with somebody who has lost a leg, I'm going to use that guy. Even though he's quote unquote bad for me, there's still great stuff there. We don't have to be scared. You stand on the side of the right. That should be the name of this podcast episode.
I like that. I'm going to write that down, actually.
Yeah.
And it's kind of, for me, and kind of the closing, that's one of the things that's always been tough for me is that I have to constantly remind myself that. And
yes,
we even, earlier you were like, that's a big pill to swallow, right? And I'm like, yes, it is, because sometimes I think the juries are not going to realize that. I'm asking for money for them. That's like a tough sell.
It's tough for anybody, right? You're not supposed to talk about money and sex and politics and religion, right? And that's the other thing we do a lot in the H2H Playground, which is our online program, is we have this whole money course. Because if you don't deal with your money shit, you're not going to ever get big verdicts. You got to be so proud to stand there and ask for $100 million, for example. And there's things you can do there too. I've heard attorneys say, we're asking you for 100. It's like, you're not asking them. It's not coming out of their fucking pockets. Stop saying you're asking the jury. We're asking you, right? We're asking you to return a verdict in the amount of $100 million. But you got to get that's why mindset is so huge. You got to get so ingrained. And I am standing on the side of the right. I am standing for this person who was harmed by this corporation or this bad action, right? And that there's nothing wrong with allowing money to make up for things that we can't fix, right? And I want to talk about that. And you go in there as the leader of saying it's okay to talk about money. And that's what our price versus value thing is. It's because jurors will award economics all day long, right? Because what's money for? Money buys things. That's what it does. So economics makes sense. You're going to show me your receipt. I get that. You're going to show me a bill. I understand that. But then non-economics is always the problem. That's where we leave money on the table. And that's why we talk a lot about how there's a totally different way to talk about that, right? Economics are things that come with a price tag. Non-economics are things that have value, but don't come with a price tag. And you have to talk about that very differently than over here. But it's all about the mindset. If you're scared, oh my God, we're asking you, that's going to be all over the jury. You got to come in there like balls swinging and be like, this is what this case is worth. I got to tell you one story quickly about mindset. So I had an attorney come up and same thing, fear about the jury. And I said, what do you want to believe instead? He said, what do you mean? I said, if you could just make it up, this was actually true, what would you choose to believe about the jury? And he said, that they love me. And I said, great. We're going to play with that the whole time you're here. So every time we see, I'm like, jury loves you. He's like, the jury loves me. Jury loves you. He went home. He'd send me emails. I was preparing for trial. Signed every single one of them. The jury loves me. So went to trial. I get a call and I said, well, how'd it go? And he said, Sari, jury loves me. First 8-figure verdict, $10 million. He's gone on to get more 8-figure after 8-figure after 8-figure. And I keep going on Facebook seeing this shit. And I'm like in his comments going, dude, I'm getting a little tired of telling you how much the jury loves you. And he keeps saying that's the one thing that changed everything. When he really started believing that they loved him, he acted differently. And look, his results are showing that that's true. Go in there thinking they hate you and they will. I'll tell you that much.
Go in there kind of, I wouldn't say fearless, but maybe fearless. Just feel confident and know that they're going to like you. What are you worried about?
And even if they don't like you stand on the side of the right. They don't have to like you, but you're standing on the right side. Believe in that.
How does one get involved with you? So what are some, I know there's levels to getting involved with you in terms of,
I'm married, so I need to come out and say that first. So I can't get involved with you in a sexual way, although I do sexually harass my male clients because I'm like, it's about fucking time y'all got a little taste of that. So you can go to sariswears.com/H2H, like the letter H and the number two, H2H shit. And that's where you can sign up and you can choose. You can be like, I want to hear about your podcast, or I want to hear about upcoming things, or I want to, whatever you want to hear about. You don't have to get all of our emails. You can choose a great place to start. But these 2 days, like I said, are been very popular because you can expense them to a case. You bring a case and work on it for 2 days with me. But the H2H playground is really where we have our community that we're constantly practicing. That's why I created it. I'm like, y'all don't practice enough. So we have this community that's practicing all the time. And I'm in there every single week coaching and teaching. And so if you go to sariswears.com/play, PLAY, that's how you can learn about that.
it's fantastic. And I definitely recommend it for everybody. Just this time alone. I mean, I promise you, when I put this on air, people are going to text me constantly about how this was fantastic. And they're probably going to all change and do it. And I mean it because when I went to the TLU Vegas, I was like, man, I gotta write this down. I got to make sure I rewatch this later. Lo and behold, I've probably watched it like 10 times by now. So.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's great. And I will say, this one thing I will say is the funnel method is our newest. It's not new, but the book was in
Sure.
2019 and it's not in the book. So if you want to be learning all of my newer things, you have to be in the crew or, hanging out with us in some way. It's not, that stuff's not in the book. And I think it's some of my best stuff is my new voir dire methods, even though it's not new, but it's not in the book.
Yeah, no. And again, if you're just starting out, if you're a young attorney, definitely read Hostage. Game changer. I mean it. Year 2, me being a lawyer, I was like, that's it. I gotta work on everything that's in here. So,
now you need to join the crew, though. Hello.
Apparently, yeah, that's what I'm gonna do.
Yeah.
It's next for me.
Okay, great.
But thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. Yeah.
I'm excited about what I'm going to learn with you. I'm going to sign up for everything that you have. I mean it. You guys heard me live.
I'm holding you to
It was
that,
a
my
public
friend.
pledge. Public pledge.
Yes,
So.
that's right. Public commitment. Yeah, I can't go back on it now. All of your listeners are, although as we're recording this, maybe you're going to bleep that part out. But yeah, no, it'll be great. It'll be fun to hang out on the regular.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.